welcome to Voices in Hyperspace, where friends get together and talk about science fiction. We are currently watching Babylon 5. We're on season 2, and today's episode is Knives Impression. I'm Captain Melisila.
I'm Legendary Black Lion.
I'm the Rebel Nita.
Hey y'all, this is Sunday.
So, this episode is wild. How many of y'all had a chance to see it beforehand? I know you did, Nita.
I watched it twice before we watched it just now.
Nice.
She cheated and watched it before.
I accidentally watched the wrong episode before we did a different episode. And this was the wrong episode that I watched. So I watched.
Hey, this is a good episode to watch though, because this is really setting the tone. What we see is there's a couple of things. I want to kind of do some, I guess, kind of a breakdown. Garibaldi sucks at his job. He absolutely sucks at his job.
I feel like we say that every episode.
There's something going on in the last 3 or 4 episodes where Garibaldi is not good at his job at all. And we see in this one, he has a conflict with Captain Sheridan all the time. And they kind of established that in episode 1 of season 2, where he's like, I don't know you. You know what I mean? And so Garibaldi's just not talking to him. He's not telling him anything. Except for that one time he was explaining that underground theft ring. And then Sheridan is like, I want you to take care of those things. I don't need to know everything. And Garibaldi's like, fine, I'm not going to tell you shit. and he doesn't.
Right. That's probably why he doesn't talk to him. Because he's like, oh, you expect me to just handle stuff? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, isn't that your job? Right?
And this opening scene is pretty interesting. I noticed that Captain Sheridan is wearing an Agamemnon baseball cap. Very reminiscent of Deep Space Nine's Niners cap. So I think that is kind of a dig at them. And baseball seems to be the pastime of outer space for some reason.
But made it to space.
Yeah, I was gonna say is that the human thing to do?
I wonder if a real police officer currently would watch this show and think that Garibaldi is doing a great job.
I hope to God not, because he sucks. So what's going on? Sheridan is hitting. He's basically at the batter's box or whatever, batting practice in Babylon 5, and you can see the inside of the interior of the station. It's great. Garibaldi goes down there and they're having a conversation. He's like, oh, you're stressed? He's like, yeah, I like to blow off steam by doing this. Garibaldi's on well, luckily, you could be going down the triangle. And he's like, what the heck is a triangle? It's like gray sector. Weird stuff be happening down there. People report it all the time. And Sheridan's like, this is the first time I've heard of this. This is weird, because this is where I'm saying Garibaldi doesn't tell him anything. All these reports, and Sheridan is like, I never heard of that. But just to kind of point out some things, Sheridan has been going on this spiritual journey. I think this episode is kind of spending a lot more time, because remember, he got kidnapped, saw Kosh. Some stuff happened, and he's like, Kosh, you need to teach me. And Kosh is like, all right. And so he's having these more spiritual situations. Yes, Nita, gray sector triangle.
It's a love triangle. That's where love enters the gray area.
When they have this discussion, this is where I'm like, oh, so this is part of Sheridan's spiritual awakening or whatever. And he's talking about how he's interested in paranormal stuff. So he's like, oh, I want to check that out. I don't know what would possess him, but he's like, I'm gonna go check it out by myself.
Okay. He loves conspiracy theory, so that makes sense.
Yes.
So he's in triangle type place would be something that someone who likes conspiracy theories would jump at.
Yeah, he's into all of those unsolved mysteries and stuff like that, which does tell us that Sheridan is interested in this stuff. He's not just running a tight ship. He's curious about stuff, and things happen to him. So in the meantime, Veer and Londo, they are discussing Centauri opera, and both of them start to sing exploring this classical music. And this is where I realize, even though it's been there, it's kind of in the back of my brain, but I do realize that the Centauri Republic is ancient Italy.
Very. Like when they were singing the song, first of all, I thought it was beautiful. Whatever voices, whoever was singing did a beautiful job. And I wanted pizza.
Jesus Christ.
It reminded me of the Romantic period. So I wouldn't say like that old. I would say maybe early 1800s.
You might be right.
Sometime after like Mozart and Beethoven and Bach. More of a Wagner type thing, but not, most definitely not Wagner. But that time period, you know.
Yeah, because I mean, if we combine the way that they dress, the way that they costume and decorate everything, the way that they speak, the culture is very, at the very least, is old Italy.
Yeah, I would say a combination of
like pre-modern.
Yeah.
And so Londo gets seized by his throat by a hooded figure, and the dude is like, "You're gonna die." And then Londo's like, "What?" And then he calls him his name, Paso Leante. He's like, "Wait a minute, I know that name." And it turns out that it is his friend.
Did you catch the way the grip was? It was a very like stupid, ineffective grip.
Yeah, he was, for Stand Byers is like threatening, but he wasn't meaning Londo any harm.
Yeah, like he couldn't do any harm with that, with the way his arm was behind his neck, and it was weird.
Yeah, it kind of made me think about how effective, even when they did have their fight, and yeah, you can kill someone in fencing, but how effective fencing really is as a like art form, as a martial art. Like, is it more of an art than it is a fighting style?
That's a good point. They
yeah.
Yeah, and think about the society they come from. They highly value that style of settling issues, like fencing. I make this joke. It's like, Sunday, what was it?
Knock knock.
What you proclaim is different from what is the joke?
You call it marriage, I call it prostitution?
No. It was that song where it's like, what I observe is different from what you are saying.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Sheesh.
It's okay.
Oh, man,
it's okay. Don't worry about it. We're gonna we'll come back to it because it is part of the episode. So, but
I was kind of thinking about the difference between like fencing and kendo.
Oh,
whereas like in fencing, there's so many different rules to how you move and what you do. Whereas in kendo, the rules are basically on how you become more powerful. Like,
but they each have like, you have to strike at these specific spots to score. Yeah. Londo's friend's name is Urza, and he's all like, "Oh, my old buddy," and they're having their reunion moment, which is pretty wild. I do want to make a note here. All the stuff that happened with the Centauri on the station, notice how station security does not bother any of the Centauri about anything ever. That one time Londo had a gun pulled on him, that was like, what, season 1? And ever since then, security has never been close to them. So,
well, they were trained by Michael, so...
Yeah, right. So we learned that Urza is a respected Centauri war hero, the hero of the Battle of Gorash, member of the Kuro Prito, the Proud Knives, all this stuff. What Londo is doing, he's kind of reliving his past, and he's all like, "Oh, it's so wonderful. This guy's a war hero. We live in dueling societies, and we have great names and all of that stuff, right?" And Londo is sharing information with Veer, talking about the long-standing alliance between House Mollari and House Jado. explanation of the Feist names and all that stuff. Like, we get to listen to Londo wax poetic about the past a lot, and it is very sickening. And some stuff happens in this episode where we're like, oh, you're a horrible person, Londo.
But he gets to figure that out too. That's the nice part, because we kind of already knew he was a horrible person, but they just like emphasized it a lot more.
It's even
so that he saw it.
Go ahead.
I
was just gonna say, we get to see Londo double down on being a horrible person too. Like, he gets called out on it by Veer, and Londo's like, "Ah, man, we got to see this to the end." It's like, no, you don't, bro. You
to see it through, my boy. To see it through.
And he tried to gaslight Veer so much in this episode.
It's terrible. It's horrible because Veer witnesses all of Londo's opportunities and all of Londo's failures. He even has one moment where he's like, I'd like normally the way you act isn't cool, but I want to compliment you. And then as soon as he says that, Londo says something where I'm like, come on, man, you got to keep being a disappointment.
But he said, you're going to make me turn the cheek if you keep complimenting me like that.
Right.
I'm like, you just gaslighted him all the time, constantly trying to keep him down. Even when he's kissing your ass, you still keeping him down. Like,
yeah. All right. So in the meantime, our good old boy, Captain Sheridan, he's investigating Gray Sector. Gray 10, part of the Triangle, as Nito wants us to keep remembering. And he's by himself exploring this part of the station. And I wanted to know, how old is this station again? Maybe 5 years old? 6 years. Why are there paranormal stories about this place already? It's just wild. But I guess they do have like a chorus of chanting monks just hanging down there for no reason. They appear and disappear. So
lots of people have died on the ship too.
Yeah. I'm gonna make a comment about that in a moment because I have questions. So Sheridan's down there rummaging around in Gray 10 and he finds a dead Markhab. I want y'all to pay very close attention to the name of this species for the next 2 episodes. But it's a dead alien with his head smashed in, and Sheridan's all like, all right. He's trying to call it in. His communications is messing up. Garibaldi, being the horrible person he is like not trying to find him. He's just like, oh, my communications is jacked up. Oh no, I can't hear you. Oh no.
Yeah, very not concerned.
That's not one of his boys. You don't know him.
So while that's going on, the Markhab springs awake, grabbing Sheridan by the face, and you get to see some shiny stuff go from his hands to Sheridan. He's all like, oh, geesh. I don't know what happened. That's weird.
When I saw the glitter, I was like, that's COVID.
Oh.
Oh no.
Glitter.
I don't know. Like, people were out here were talking about how COVID is like glitter and it's like so easily spread and it's everywhere. I don't know. So when I saw the glisteningness, I was like, oh shit, he got COVID.
Oh shit. So Sheridan gets all messed up and he's like not feeling great. He's at med lab.
He got snatched in the face.
He got snatched.
And then he went to the med lab.
Yeah.
And he didn't so much as have a scratch. It was like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're totally fine.
Oh, jeez.
You just need some rest. And when right after the doctor walked away, he starts seeing weird shit.
Yeah.
And instead of being like, hey, doc, there's this new symptom, she's just like, nah, I'm just a little dizzy.
So Franklin tries to come up with an explanation, and he's all like, oh, sometimes when bodies are dead and they fill up with gas and it can cause movements, and Garibaldi, in all of his intelligent usefulness, makes a quip about gas attacks. Y'all didn't notice it, right?
Yeah, I noticed it.
Oh,
like
okay.
you making a fart joke.
Yes.
Oh no,
Yeah.
I didn't notice it. Like even when you said something right now, I was like gas chamber.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
and
You're talking about
he said
fart?
the zombie gas attack.
Yes. And yeah, just like how y'all were ignoring it, so was Franklin and so was Sheridan. They're like, shut up, Garibaldi. And then Garibaldi goes and tells Sheridan, like, next time you should listen to me. I'm just like, okay. But I'm remembering Garibaldi is terrible at his job. So, he's terrible at his job, but he thinks he's the greatest cop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's just kind of like, whatever. Londo and Veer are discussing Jado, the dueling society. They are reminiscing of the good old days, and this is starting to sound like it's checking off a box to me. Because remember, Centauri society, sounding very Italian. They're reminiscing of the good old days. They want to uphold the old standards and the old values. They clicking off some of those what is fascism boxes.
Mm-hmm.
He says that both of their houses have been alive since the early days of the Republic. So they are very connected to the Republic itself. And this is what starts to bother me about Londo. His ego is connected more to the success of the empire. So he wants to keep this terrible empire that is making him depressed. He wants to keep it like going because it makes him feel good about it. All the stuff that he laments about it, he kind of forgets that, and he's like, the good old days, the good old days. And Veer calls him out on this. This is the first time Veer calls him out. He's like, every generation of Centauri mourns the golden days when their power was like unto the gods. It's counterproductive. Why make history if you fail to learn by it? And Londo just brushes himself. He's like, you're so negative.
Yeah, that's no more gaslighting. That was a gaslight. He's like, oh, you're just being negative. He's not being negative. He's being realistic. But because he's going against what he's saying, he needs to bring him down a notch in his perspective.
Right. And I wrote a note here. I'm like, he's definitely a hyper nationalist. Like all this stuff that is happening, that is ruining this society, started back then. But Londo's like, nah, we need to go back to then.
On top of that, like he has no self-esteem at all. Like all of his esteem is in the system and not any for himself or his well-being or any. It reminds me of like the red pill. Like he fights so hard for the system that goes against any like improvement that could be made. Simply because the system exists and it's told him for so long that that's where your esteem is supposed to be, and instead of attempting to find some self-esteem.
Yeah. And Veer is there as kind of like the conscience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah. The next thing is Sheridan is in his chambers. He's in his bed chambers trying to rest. And he hears noises. And he's freaking out. And he said he's feeling like he's being stalked. And there is this ugly gray looking creature flying over his bed. And yeah, it's really freaky.
Before I saw the creature, I was like, what kind of dog is about to be betrayed on the other side of this scary nightmare? Because it was just sounding like a really big, snarling dog.
I thought about the masturbation demon. I don't know what kind of
what?
Yeah. I don't know what indoctrination y'all got with Christianity, but there was a masturbation demon that would sit on you in the night and like haunt your dreams. And it was what was being explained was sleep paralysis, but as like the demon of masturbation.
Lovely.
Yo, I've never heard that. That's wild.
He was in his bed chambers.
I thought that whatever had happened to him in the triangle was manifesting physically. Like it's like something had came out of him, like whatever affected him when he got touched by the dead body had was like spores that were being put in him.
Yeah.
And it had like hatched somewhere in his apartment. Not apartment, you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of an apartment. He's written it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically what happens is Sheridan comes to and he pulls out his PPG and starts blasting. So I start blasting things. I applaud the special effects here because they don't need to do anything special. It just disappears and he blows up the decorations behind it and he's all freaked out about it, which, yeah, you should be freaked out. And lo and behold, who comes into the room? Mr. Garibaldi. Mr. Garibaldi and one of his security people. And Sheridan asked the question that I wanted to ask. Dude, how'd you get here so fast? and Garibaldi is like, oh, well, we were just walking by and we heard the detecting system detect gunfire in your quarters. Question.
He's lying.
Does the station have a detection system for gunfire?
No.
Because people be firing off in that station.
Apparently, they do now.
Yo.
Your city does.
Somebody wrote that in.
They had to.
They wrote in he was outside of his office, his quarters with another officer.
Which another officer that does like this weird curtsy because she's trying to walk in slow. Because Sheridan he aims his gun at them. And Garibaldi's like, whoa, and she's like, oh shit. Which I will have to compliment. She's a beautiful black woman who looks very much like she should be in security, and she just encountered somebody who got the drop on her. That's what she looked like. It was, yeah. After the attack, they can't find anything that would have caused the visions of the creature. Mm-hmm. And that's when Garibaldi's like, hey, you might be hallucinating. And the Sheridan's like, man, it's just kind of crazy. You know, I saw this thing and then it was gone. And Garibaldi's like, it happens.
Very not concerned yet again.
And his story is, I've seen a whole chorus of singing. I forgot what it was, but he's like, but it was after I had quite a few drinks. I'm like, so you want to tell one of your drunk stories to relate to the captain who's having a serious mental episode. Fantastic. Okay, great.
Instead of reporting it to the doctor, or do they report it to the doctor?
They do report it to the doctor later.
I'm like, oh, so this one they do, because the next time it happens they don't. So I got them confused.
People don't be communicating like they should.
They don't. Also, Garibaldi brings up like, oh yeah, that Markhab that you saw with the head smashed in and he's dead in a place where nobody else is. Yeah, it was suicide. Nobody knows why. And then that's where they're like wondering about, okay, so the Markhab's rituals might be part of it. You know, they hallucinate and can hurt themselves. And then Garibaldi's like, yeah, but there's no psychoactives present. And now I'm starting to really be concerned about the Markhab. I'm like, what kind of psychoactives are y'all taking that can be on this station? You know, which I think I remember from season 1 that there are a number of things restricted on the station. So,
but like, yeah, it sounds like maybe they're starting to get like religious exemptions for some things, and maybe that one was something they felt like wasn't that bad.
Yeah,
I get high. It's part of my religion.
Or a delegate could have brought it on.
Yeah, apparently, if you're connected to an ambassador, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like have a duel in the
yeah.
Random as fight and murder.
Yeah. So we get back to Londo and Urzo having a conversation. They're reminiscing over the old times, and Londo is talking about he's asking, well, actually Urzo is telling him like, oh, your name is being spoken of in high places. And Londo's like, oh, well, what are they saying? And this is where he learns like people are speaking highly of him. Your star is rising like the star of the Centauri Empire. Londo says, yes, we are Centauri. We have bowed to the whims of other races for far too long. we will show the galaxy our true spirits. And again, this is him connecting like the movement and success of the Empire to himself. And this is where him and Urza have a conflict, because Urza is explaining like, yo, we didn't start this war. There is a certain faction that started this war, and they're the same people who assassinated the prime minister. And Londo's like, I thought he committed suicide. It's like, nah, that's fake news. And this same faction contributed to Emperor Cartagia's rise to power. Then he brings up like, because of these people, my house has been accused of treason. And that's the real reason that he's there, because he wants to connect to Londo and kind of get a favor done for him.
Mm-hmm. Not knowing that not Londo the reason that your family under attack, my boy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He explains this and he says, if they have their way, my family's name will be disgraced. I looked this up. Being disgraced, basically you're going to be thrown down at the bottom of society. You're going to lose all your influence, money, political power, etc.
And it's normal.
Yeah. Well, in Satari society, what does normal even mean? Right.
Right. They could be like thrown into slavery.
Yeah. And at the end of this kind of conflicted conversation, Londo agrees to do
no accountability for himself.
Oh, he does not, but he does. He's like, all right, I'm gonna help you. And there's invites him to a banquet that'll be happening the next evening. Remember, these guys are friends.
Childhood friends.
Yeah.
Good friends.
I guess it's the next morning. Sheridan goes to CNC and he's talking to Ivanova. Listen to what Ivanova says. Sheridan's like, oh, so how's everything going? And Ivanova's like, everything's going great. A little too great. In fact, it worries me how great it goes. And she's like, what? Okay. And then he starts to like feel whatever he feels. His eyes are fucking up. He has another hallucination and I wrote in here, he's stripping balls. Because there's a ship that Ivanova is, bringing through the jump gate. It goes, they're going to dock and everything. That's cool. But then Sheridan sees another ship just come out of nowhere and then it explodes. And this ship turns out to be the Icarus. And he's yelling real quick. He's like, hey, I need y'all to go check that sector so we can see what's going on. And they're like, what are you talking about? He's like, y'all didn't see that ship? They're like, what ship? And then they don't see anything. He's like, all right, I think I need to go to med lab.
And everybody just like is like cool. And ain't nobody reporting that. Am I wrong? But I didn't think he went to med lab after that. He just left the bridge.
He left the bridge, but he goes to get it like checked out. So he goes to Franklin, and this is where Franklin is like, maybe this is a virus you got. You could be sick. Okay. Maybe you got stress from, changing jobs. Your diet's fucked up. You fat piece of shit.
I was thinking that was a reference to him like now being able to have access to fresh fruit instead of like whatever rations they had on the Icarus.
Oh, he got a parasite. Shit.
and Franklin is like, yeah, you know what? You probably been working too hard. You need a break. Because let's think about it. Sheridan's been kidnapped and tortured. And he went to work the next day.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And so Franklin orders him off duty. He's like, I order you to take time off. Franklin does mention offhand, they're talking about the Marqueb, like what's going on with him. Franklin's like, I know a good Marqueb doctor. And I'm just like, do you, Franklin? I'm saying all of that because I watched the next episode. And so the Marqueb become pretty important for the next story. Anyway, Franklin also offhandedly says, hey, Sheridan, maybe you are sending yourself a message. But whatever is going on, you need to take a break. And Sheridan is all mad. He's like, you're just like your father. Maybe that's supposed to be an insult. Maybe not. But Franklin looks at him. He's like, thank you. Because him and his father made up they're like cool now. So it's cool to be like. And so Sheridan makes his way back down to batting practice. And he
was ordered to relax.
Yep. And Garibaldi makes a comment about this. He's like 3 straight hours of batting practice. We call that obsessive. That's not relaxing. It's like whatever. And then Garibaldi finally shares some information. This is the thing that pissed me off a little bit, because remember how I said Garibaldi sucks and doesn't share anything with Sheridan? What Garibaldi shares is that the Marquette ship passed through Sector 14. Sector 14? What about Sector 14? Isn't that off limits? Garibaldi's like, yeah, because of the stuff that happened with Babylon 4. Sheridan's like, Babylon 4? What do you mean? What happened with Babylon 4? And Garibaldi explains like all the temporal stuff to him. He's like, yeah, it's off limits because of time travel and all this stuff. And Sheridan's like, I don't remember knowing anything about that. This is the first time I've heard of it. What the fuck? And Garibaldi's like, oh, well, that's because Earth Force took all of the information and reports regarding this situation. If anybody who is listening, go back and look in season 1. I think it's at the end of season 1 where they're talking about, I think it's called Babylon Squared, where they find Babylon 4. And with Sinclair is the one leading that mission. But at this point, Garibaldi gives Sheridan a copy of the records. He's like, I thought the records were confiscated. And he's like, I made copies just in case. So here's the thing, y'all. Garibaldi had copies of all of this information just in case. And he's been hanging on it all year with the new captain who should probably know. And he didn't say anything. And he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, you might need to know this because something is happening to you now.
No, it's more like, hey, you're supposed to be relaxing. Let me stress you out.
Yeah. So that's wild. Back with Londo, he contacts Lord Rifa and he's explaining like, yeah, I hear that Urza Jodo is going to be considered a treason. I want that not to happen. And Rifa's like, what do you mean? Like, we've already passed the resolution. I mean, we already presented the resolution. It's going to pass. There's nothing I can do. He's like, no, you need to unpass that because I said so. Riva's like, wait a minute, what dealings do you have with Jado? Like, you hanging out with him, it's going to make you look bad. And Londo's like, look, I need you to remember who the fuck I am and who made all the shit that you did possible. Because without me, you was nothing.
That part.
Londo lives in the past. Like that, he forever resides in the past. He wants to go back to the good old days. He wants to go back to the time where Urza wasn't a traitor. He wants to go back to, remembering when he just totally betrayed the living species, the biological kind. Like,
yeah,
he resides in the past.
And the entire episode, that's just where he's not thinking about what is happening to him. He's always looking back. And Rifa just sounds and looks like he just is an oily snake. This dude, look, if y'all got a person in your crew like that dude, that's the snake. That's the snake.
What's so crazy about you saying that is I thought that Londo's friend, as much for the right side of the argument that he was from, knowing that the original emperor didn't commit suicide or didn't die of whatever causes, the more he talked and spoke, I was just like, he looked like the bad guy, yo.
Well,
his face was all twisted up and
like
an evil villain.
You have to remember, these are Centauri. They are war criminals. These are bad people in the universe, in the galaxy. Granted that in this particular story, Urza is kind of like the sympathetic one, but they are equally bad people. And Urza even explains this. So at the banquet, this is where Urza is, he's throwing a party for Londo, and he's all like, you should try the Chipotle, which that's what it sounded like to me. I don't know what he actually said.
Like, what?
That's what, that when I heard it too, I was like, that's what I was like. And Londo explains that he was trying to have an under the table deal, because like what Jadot's plan was, we're gonna have this banquet and we're gonna make a public declaration of Londo taking my side, and that's gonna defeat the resolution, or if the resolution passes, I'm gonna still have standing. And this is that honor society stuff. And Londo's like, you know what? None of that's necessary. I already took care of it. He's like, what do you mean took care of it? I spoke to Lord Rifa. He's like, Rifa, what the fuck you got to do with him? He's the main one. And Londo's like, what do you mean? They listen to me. And Jadot says a thing that I thought was very profound. He goes, listen, this is where Jadot sons Londo. He goes, listen, knowledge is a basic tool for politics, and mine is considerable. And then there was a pause there to be like, and you're dumb.
Is this about the time where there were inconsistencies in what I've asked versus what you've done?
Yes. That's it right there. And this is, basically Jadot is rebuking Londo's stupidity. And Londo explains, like, look, I'm working with these people because I have a destiny to fulfill. One that will take our people back to the golden age. We are meant to rule.
Go to Sector 12 for that, or Sector 14.
Oh yeah, he has to travel back in time. But he's like, meant to conquer, meant to rule, meant to build empire, and it's just bizarre because he knows that he's in a bad position for his friend, and he's like, I just got to keep going. And he points out to Jadot, he's like, hey, you're the hero of Garrosh. You should know what I'm talking about. And Jadot's like, look, what I did in Garrosh still haunts me. I don't want to go back to that kind of glory. And he says the thing. He says, you cannot build an empire based on slaughter and deceit.
Watch this.
And he goes, you know what? All right, cool. Let's check this out. I'm going to give you a gift. And he's like, what kind of gift? He pulls out a sword and he explains, like, this is what I used at Battle of Garrosh. And Londo's like, I can't use this. I can't have this. No. And then Jadot's like, okay, cool. Well, I challenge you to a duel to the death. While that duel challenge is down, Sheridan is finally making a connection about his hallucinations. He connects. He's looking at the footage of what happened to Babylon 4 and it's disappearing. He's like, wait a minute, what is this? Which, yeah, I'm pretty sure if that's the first time you've seen something like that, it'll really freak you out. And then he's like, I think I know what I need to do. And then he leaves his quarters, leaves his link there. I think this is the part where one of y'all were pointing out, like, this is how we know that he's there. Because while Sheridan did leave his link earlier, he received some sort of like tracker thing from Franklin. So that's around his hands, his wrist, which looks like a medical bracelet. I don't know. Basically, he steals a fighter, and he's like, I'll be back. And they're like, what are you doing? He's like, look, I think I need to do something. Just, it's cool. I know what I'm doing. And like, what do you mean you know what you're doing? He's like, I think I got a kind of a passenger, but I'll explain when I get back. And he runs to Sector 14, which I don't, what's the range of these fighters? These things, they can go far, apparently. Or maybe Sector 14 isn't far from where Babylon 5 is, because apparently when you lose, 4 other stations, you just put number 5 in the same spot. So he arrives to Sector 14. The portal does open up, and Sheridan's like, there you go. And he lets out this blood-curdling scream.
He was singing. He was like, oh.
Okay, Ursula.
Yeah, that's what it looked like.
And the spirit leaves his body. And it flies into the portal, and it leaves Sheridan knocked out and unconscious.
Didn't leave a tip or nothing. Not a review.
Not a thank you. Not a couple bucks. Nothing. Garibaldi follows Sheridan, and he realizes, like, hey, where is this dude at? He finds him. He's like, okay, cool. Let's lock on him so we can bring him in. And the ship, which I was joking, but the ship does sound a little bit like Quagmire from Family Guy. The ship's computer, which then kind of adds context to when Garibaldi manually latches onto the ship and tows him back home. Yeah, so all you Family Guy fans, think about that. Then, so that part is kind of resolved. We're going to learn a little bit more about it later. But Londo and Urza have their duel. And this is where we can start thinking about a lot of different things, particularly with the Centauri society, because it is a dual society. It is an honor society. This is where Londo is talking about how the disgrace would affect Jado, and Veer says the most reasonable thing in the entire episode for Centauri. He goes, disgrace is preferable to death. And Londo is like, no, it's not.
And Londo's such a brat. Like, he does not want to learn about anything.
No. And then Veer is like, look, what you're doing is insane. And Londo snaps at him because insanity is part of the times. We must embrace the madness. And this is where we're like, oh, you're a piece of shit. Oh, Londo.
I'm just struggling with Veer knows the right way and things to do. But you steady working under Londo and being his foot soldier, yes, man. It's almost like anybody from the revolution talking about we're going to work from inside the system and make a change. No, you not. You about to just be doing, you know, what the puppet masters say and talking shit under your breath.
That's Veer. Well, you know what? His character develops in a very interesting way. And like, while we're 5 episodes from the end of season 2 is getting us to a very pivotal point in the story, and each of these characters go through some very interesting growth. Keep a pin in that. So the duel between Urza and Londo is under ceremonial, procedural rules, etc., etc. They got all these special vests. Was it like special gloves too for dueling?
I don't remember the gloves.
And
they
then
got a little costume together. Yeah.
Yep. They had to make sure they looked really demure, very mindful for the duel.
Very mindful.
For the duel,
very ceremonial.
Yeah, they had to get their special outfits together to coordinate.
It took 2 hours to do that.
Yeah. Well, and they drank a lot the entire time.
Oh yeah.
Remember when Londo is like, after he met with Urza and he goes back to his quarters with Veer and he's pouring this gigantic chalice of wine.
Like, might as well just drink from the container you're pouring from.
Yeah.
While he was gaslighting him, like, I need alcohol.
Yeah.
And that might also explain why he's an alcoholic, because he can't face his existence and he has to numb himself from not having an actual existence.
It pains him.
Yeah, it's pain. Not living your true identity is painful. He lives for the identity of the system that he lives in and not for himself at all.
Yeah. So the duel, is kind of back and forth. Peter Jurassic is not the best stunt actor, but this is a decent duel for all of you fight coordinating fans.
It's 2 old men in walkers fighting each other.
Yeah, with very shiny sticks. And so at first, Urza draws first blood, and they're like clanging back and forth. The episode cuts away to what Sheridan's doing, but when they come back, they're all like hella tired, which to me means they've swung 2 or 3 times each, and now they're like exhausted because they're old. And Urza is like, you're better than I thought.
I wonder if because he's explaining all of this to Veer, the rules and everything. So it's just their high society fencing type families that did this. So
from very long ago.
Your pool of fighters that you had to train from is very small.
Yeah.
You being the best of the small group of rich people that you knew back then doesn't necessarily make you a good fighter.
Right. The people in the street who really have to fight to survive.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even Garibaldi might even be a better fighter than
So this kind of reminds me of Greek and Roman society, where the people in the upper echelon of society were fighters. They were generals. They were soldiers. They knew how to do that stuff. So that's just kind of what that reminds me of. But what ends up happening is Urza and Londo are fighting. Urza leaves himself open, and Londo's on the ground breathing hard, and he just stabs him right through the chest. No hesitation whatsoever. This dude saw the opening and murdered his friend in front of everybody.
Because that's what his society expects of him.
Right. And Urza, as he's dying, has time to, perform a monologue, which is, I had to duel you to the death because it will ensure honor to my family, which the rules are the loser's family in the duel are taken under the name of the winner. So Londo just inherited and adopted a bunch of people by killing this dude. And they're both like, cool. That's the rules, and that's A-okay. And then Urza dies in his arms.
And now he's collected a whole other family. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, he just collected a whole other family. You know what type of society collects families? Slave societies.
Mm-hmm.
Honor on you. Honor on your cow. Since homeboy's dead now.
So yeah, and that dude just dies, and I want to point out, no security, no one telling Londo no one looking at the Centauri. This might be a thing where at the beginning Garibaldi was like, I don't want the Centauri or the Narn to be near. That could be why they're just like, man, leave them alone.
Yeah, it's a private party, invitation only.
Right.
Well, and the other species, the one that they found dead, they were mentioning the cyphotropics that they use. We ignore that too. So
yeah. So remember, Garibaldi sucks, and he trained everybody. So security on this station is not great.
If there's a fight at a party and someone dies, the police don't find out until somebody tell the police. So
oh, geez. And nobody shot anybody.
If you just kind of look like somebody that might have been close to Sheridan's wife once upon a time on the ship, you could just get put in the bottom of the brig. No shower, no food, no water. I mean, that man didn't do nothing.
He was just
saw the whole book of him.
Yeah, he was just he was a war vet.
Existing.
Yeah. So now we get the conclusion of what Sheridan experienced, and not going too much into it. This is what we find out. So Sheridan was possessed by an alien being. It's from Sector 14. It was carried to the station by the Markeb. Ended up committing suicide because I guess the way that the alien was communicating is through these hallucinations, through these images. And Sheridan was tripping. He was like, well, I don't know what's going on. But then he recognized what the symbols are. He had fear, that was the Greylor or Grylor. How do you pronounce it? Greylor? Whatever.
I don't know. The tiny T-Rex. Not T-Rex.
The pterodactyl.
What's the other one? Pterodactyl, yeah.
Yeah. Then Lost, which is the Icarus exploding, and then Home, which were his parents. There's a part of his parents, and then he's like, I think I get it, which, hey, good on you, Sheridan, because I would have thought that something was seriously wrong with me. I would have resigned and like went to seek help. Luckily, none of our captains ever seek help, so good on him.
Yeah. Like, how did you figure out that that was nonverbal communication from a being that you could not see?
Right.
Or sense?
Right. And, he was like, he realized the thing is scared. He's lost and wanted to go home. It was like, oh, of course, let's take this alien being to a temporal rift in space and time and let it go. Franklin is like, do you think we can contact it again? And he was like, I don't think we should.
He's geeking out. He geeked out hard.
Yeah. He's a doctor in xenobiology, so he absolutely loved that.
Mm-hmm.
We get to reflect on Londo and Jado's sword fight, crossing swords. Sorry. And the consequences. So Londo is all like, he's all sad and stuff, and he's drinking in his quarters, but that's just like any other day. So what happened is Veer is like, oh, it's a good thing you did, that you're taking on his family to preserve them and blah, 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 blah. And that's when Londo is like snapping at him, like, stop that, or I'm gonna have to like turn the other cheek. In other words, stop kissing my ass, or I'm gonna give you more ass to kiss. I don't know what. I don't know.
That's how I took it. He's like, over here, a little to the left. Yeah.
Londo winning makes Urzo's family immune to whatever Lord Rifa has planned, so that's cool. But Londo is really like experiencing regret or reflecting regret, and he's like, my hands are bloodied, and he's like, and Veer's like, you don't have to do this, and he's like, it's too late. I must follow the path. I got to keep going through, and this is like insanity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta embrace the madness.
Gotta embrace the madness. Gotta follow the path. And this, as the show ends, we start to think, Londo, you are not a sympathetic character. You are just pathetic.
Mm-hmm.
Not sympathetic. He's a simp and just pathetic.
Yeah. So, and then the show ends. So we got to see some more of Centauri society. The way we got to hear a little bit about how things are supposed to be, all the conniving and murder. And
conniving, like knives, but pronouncing the K. Conniving. Get it? The sword fight.
Oh, yeah, I like that.
Don't encourage her.
If the gunfire detecting system was like modified to also detect clanging swords, maybe security would have been alerted to the duel.
Maybe they wouldn't have cared. I don't know. Because they're not supposed to bring weapons on, but then he doesn't have diplomatic immunity. So how did he get the sword on? Because in like
the sword was a gift,
right? Yeah. But like when in the first, it was one of the first. Episodes.
Yeah, you're talking about when the Drazi. Yeah,
he had a knife. I had a whole sword on. Other people can't even bring a knife.
It was like a ceremonial knife too, but we learned later that the Drazi like beat each other to death. So
he wasn't an ambassador.
No, it wasn't an ambassador. It was just some dude.
No, some dude. And Londo's friend.
Ambassadors are allowed to bring weapons.
And then I question that. But like Londo's friend is not an ambassador. He's just a war hero. And in that one episode, Londo had a gun. But he had to like put it together.
He like grabbed it from like bottles and stuff.
Yeah, they were like parts of statues and whatever. Like,
Yeah.
you had to assemble a secret gun, and then what's his name? Garibaldi comes up to you. You're not planning on doing something, are you? Like
And Garibaldi pulled a gun on him. He was about to blast that dude. Yeah.
So those are some inconsistencies.
Well, I don't know, because it makes me think like, okay, you know how the guy brought the sword? It makes me think that Londo already just has a sword. It's like a ceremonial thing. It's kind of like, you know how you go to those castles and they have swords and stuff like on the walls and everything, and it turns out that a lot of them are fake, but there are some that are real swords on display. And so just kind of like thinking about Londo's longing for the good old days, he keeps swords and stuff around just in case. You know what I mean?
They're just decoration when
they're
kill somebody.
Yeah.
It's slapped with a glove.
I challenge you to a duel. Yes. We must wear the same types of outfits when we murder each other. Very demure. Very mindful.
Very cutesy.
Very high class.
Very
Other people can't have a special outfit for when they plan to kill their best friends. Yeah.
I know. You have to dress and coordinate. Make sure that the shoes look right. Because when you die, you have to die with dignity. Yep. Thank y'all for joining us on this episode of Voices in Hyperspace. You can catch us on any stream platform, and if we ain't on there, go ahead and message us. We'll get on it. It'll be great.
I thought we were gonna boycott those platforms.
Nah, we're taking everything over. We're a virus. There is no resistance. There is no immunity. Resistance is futile. You can catch us on YouTube, Facebook, and TikTok at Voices in Hyperspace. I'm Legendary Black Lion. You can find me on Instagram. That is be the best way to get in touch with me. And I'm gonna play some fun songs with you now that I can do that with my profile.
Oh, this is Sunday. See y'all later.
I'm Captain Mel Asylum. You can find me at www.melsrebellion.com.
I'm Nina Painter. You can find me at See how I keep all of my platform names Nina Painter. I'm demure. Very mindful of my audience.
Oh my god. So if you need a painter, go to one of those websites.
I'll be there. Bye.
Thank y'all for joining us, and we'll see you